50 days transformed by prayer.
Hi, boys and girls. My story today is about a dog, a beagle with long floppy ears. Daddy had taken his truck and he had gone somewhere, and when he got back, this dog had climbed into the back of the truck and just did not want to get out. So Daddy decided to take the dog home with him, and if the owner came, they would give the dog up, but otherwise they would keep it for a while. Now, Mommy did not want that dog to stay on their property. But she said for a while, and if nobody comes, we're going to find someone to give the dog to. Well, Elizabeth and Amanda, they just loved the dog. Amanda was 3 years old, and actually Elizabeth was 6. And they said, Mommy, can we name the dog? And Mommy said, no, you're going to grow fond of the dog if you name the dog. So they just called the dog, Dog. But the girls went running outside to Daddy's workshop, and they put together this cardboard house for the dog, and at least the dog had some place to stay. Well, for a while, nobody was coming to claim the dog, and some days and days had passed, and pretty soon it was getting a little colder and a little colder. And of course, Mommy knew that the children, when they went to bed in the evenings, they were going to have to dress really warm because it was chilly in the house. They asked Daddy if Dog would be okay outside, and Daddy thought he would be all right. So they went to bed that night, and Mommy had said prayers with the kids and asked God to take care of and protect them. And during the night, the older girl, Elizabeth, she had gone into Mommy and Daddy's bedroom, and she had crawled into bed with them. She often did that. Sometimes Amanda used to go too, but this time Amanda didn't do it. And in the morning when Mommy and Daddy woke up and they saw Elizabeth in bed with them, but not Amanda, Mommy thought she better go check on Amanda. But you know, Amanda wasn't in the bed. And Mommy looked all over the house, and Amanda wasn't in the house. And she called for Daddy, and she said, I don't know where Amanda is. So they started to search more and more in the house, and all of a sudden they saw the front door was open. Oh my! They knew that Amanda must have gone through the door, and they said, you know, if Amanda tries to get back in, she could never have done it because that outside storm door, it's too high, that handle, for Amanda to reach it. Oh, she would freeze out there. Oh, she said to Daddy, we have to run out there and look. And so Mommy and Daddy ran outside. They started to look for Amanda. They couldn't find her. They looked everywhere for Amanda. And Mommy cried and they prayed and they said, God, please take care of Amanda. I don't know where our little girl is and she's going to freeze to death. And you know, as they were looking and they couldn't find her, all of a sudden, Beagle had brushed by Mommy's leg. And she thought, oh. And she looked to see where Beagle went. And she noticed Beagle standing beside the cardboard house. But the cardboard house had caved in with snow and with ice. And so Mommy said, oh, he just wants to come into the house. I've got to keep looking for Amanda. So Mommy kept looking for Amanda, and so did Daddy. They couldn't find her, but you know, all of a sudden they heard the dog whimpering again. And they looked, and Beagle was there again, the Beagle dog. And he was kind of looking intently at Mommy as if to try to give Mommy a message, and he kept looking at the house. And you know, Mommy started to think, oh, maybe Amanda's in the house. So Mommy went running to the house, and she looked inside and she said, oh, there's my Amanda. And she grabbed Amanda and she hugged her close. And oh, she said, Daddy, Daddy, come. I found Amanda. And she's shivering so much. And they ran into the house and they covered Amanda with blankets. And they said, we've got to take her to the hospital. And they called Grandpa to take care of Elizabeth. And when Grandpa got there, they rushed her to the hospital, and she was still shivering and shaking. Her eyes looked glassy, and oh, they were so frightened. Oh, and the doctor, he did all the things that they needed to do in emergency. He put an IV in, and you know, they found out she was suffering from hypothermia, but she did get better. And you know, they said to Amanda later, they praised God because God took care of her and she was alive. And they said, Amanda, why did you do that? Why did you go outside? And Amanda said, Mommy and Daddy, I didn't know I was outside. I went to bed that night and I woke up and there I was out in the cold. Amanda had been sleepwalking and she hadn't realized she had even gone outside until she got cold. And when she woke up, she couldn't find a place. She tried and tried to find warmth. She couldn't get back into the house. So she said, I crawled in inside the doghouse where Dog was. And when I was in there, Dog just put his body up against mine like that, and he kept me warm. Oh, she said, it's because of Dog. And then Mommy said, Amanda, Jesus was the one that saved you. Jesus was the one that told Dog to come and make your body warm so that you wouldn't get sick. And Amanda, Jesus saved your life, and he used Dog to do that. Amanda named the dog later Lucky, but the family all knew it was because of Jesus that they found their little girl. Boys and girls, if you're ever in trouble, remember Jesus is there. Ask Jesus for help, and he will help you.
Prayer is, it's that special time that you have that you can open up and share all the things that are on your heart, and you know that whoever's listening, that Jesus is listening. He's not going to judge. He's not going to say anything that's going to hurt you or cause any problems, right? And so you can really be honest and really share whatever's on your heart, right? So it's a precious time. I've had a couple, and well, obviously there's been lots, but a couple that come to mind. The first one I'd like to share is, it's from a few years back. We had moved to Morden, and we'd been there a few years already, and I felt impressed to start a Bible study. And so my wife and I had been sharing with another couple at my workplace. And they'd always, we'd talk about certain things about the Bible and some of the things that we'd been studying about. And, we'd been studying really hard at that time as well. And so we were learning a lot of new things. And so I felt like I wanted to share some of these things with them, right? And because they shared similar interests. Anyways, I wanted to start this Bible study, and I'm not a very outgoing person by nature. From a child, I really was shy, actually. So I wanted to find a way or the perfect time to try and ask them to join this Bible study. But I was really nervous. I just couldn't seem to, find that moment. I didn't want to seem pushy or anything like that. So I prayed about it a lot. I asked God that He would make known to me when the right time to ask would be. And so one day, after praying quite a bit, it was the beginning of the day. We were kind of just getting the workplace opened up and ready. And so I had walked over to her desk kind of at the front area, and I just had said a small prayer in my mind saying, God, please help me. And so I dove in. And I just mentioned, I'm planning to start this new Bible study. And before I even got the chance to ask them if they wanted to join, they asked me. They said, hey, can I join? I'm like, obviously, yes. And I was thinking in my head, praise the Lord, right? I didn't even have to ask, right? It was amazing. And so, God works in mysterious ways. He definitely opens doors, right? And when you're working with His will, you know that He's going to make things happen.
50 days transformed by prayer.
On March 30th, 1863, in the proclamation for a day of national humiliation, fasting, and prayer, the 16th North American president, Abraham Lincoln, wrote, "We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have been preserved these many years in peace and prosperity. We have grown in numbers, wealth, and power as no other nation has ever grown. But we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied and enriched and strengthened us. And we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. In my humble opinion, one of the main reasons for our apathy in prayer is not the lack of things to pray for, but the misguided perception of self-sufficiency. The superficiality and irregularity of our prayer life reflects the lie that we do not need help and that we ourselves can provide for or deal with life's challenges. Charles Spurgeon wrote that self-sufficiency is Satan's net wherein he catches men like poor silly fish and does destroy them. Biblical prayer has its roots in humility. It is founded in the perception that we do not possess the knowledge, the power, and even the disposition to meet our personal needs. We are powerless and incapable. We are not self-sufficient. We need help from above. Without the conviction of insufficiency, prayer becomes almost irrelevant. Prayer is a declaration of war against self-sufficiency in acknowledging and becoming more dependent on God. It is a war against self-sufficiency because we must admit that we cannot do anything by ourselves. It is a war against self-sufficiency because we acknowledge and praise something that is greater than us. It is a war against the ephemeral pleasures that the world has to offer us. When we praise the giver of all blessings, we state that He is the provider and His gifts are not an end in themselves. Prayer is a declaration of the war against frenetic pace of our lives as we separate time to be silent and listen to God's voice. It is a declaration of war against justification by works when we recognize that it is God who controls both the will and the accomplishment. Prayer is a declaration of war against cynicism and unbelief when we have faith that the Creator hears and answers us. Self-sufficiency is not only the basis for our prayers, but the gospel's very core. The gospel pulverizes our pretensions of self-sufficiency, humbling us and casting down our inflated egos. The gospel enlightens us, allowing us to perceive our true condition, not only as needy creatures, but as beings that are incapable of helping ourselves. The inability we face when trying to meet our own needs moves us to pray and seek the one who can give us all things. Jesus Christ affirmed, "I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing." Declare your self-sufficiency, praying to God right now. As you pray, remember, prayer is the key in the hand of faith to unlock heaven's storehouse, where are treasured the boundless resources of omnipotence.